Rather Good Coaching presents.
Hello, I'm Karen Adams of Rather Good Limited, and today I want to talk to you about experimenting like a mad scientist. This concept is about how you work, how I work, how everyone works individually, as in we're not the same. So when we try different mindset techniques or when we try different communication techniques, we want to experiment. When I was doing something yesterday and learned a couple of different techniques for resetting the brain, shall we say, or as I believe Black Widow puts it in the Avengers, cognitive recalibration. One of them is peripheral vision. So you focus on a particular point, but then you expand your attention to your peripheral vision. So you keep looking at the same point, but your actual attention is on what's happening towards the sides, what might be going on behind you. This is supposed to be quite useful for disengaging your brain from the fight, flight, focus part, because when you're focused on one thing, that's sort of, the danger part, into a more general awareness. When I used to walk home a lot from commutes, particularly late at night, it's useful to have your attention sort of more generally on the world around you rather than just where you're looking. You're looking where you're walking so you don't, trip over cracks or whatever, but you also want to have an awareness of what's going on the street. And because I tend to think of that as more alive, awake awareness, I don't find it particularly relaxing as a technique. I do find it useful, very useful to have in my toolbox, but not always great for those purposes. You might find it different. You might find that it does actually help you disengage from your hamster on a wheel thinking, and that it can really help you, relax a bit more. And that's great. It's how it works for each of us. How it works for you versus how it works for me. Whoever it works for, however it works, pick it, use it, see what it does. The other technique I learned, called the backward spin, which is a Richard Bandler thing. But if you feel something and you wind up getting het up about it, see if you can feel a certain spin inside. And if you can, feel which direction that spin's going in, and then bring it out into a movement in front of you and, sort of spin your hand in the direction that feeling is going in, and then reverse the direction. And again, this is a bit of a brain disengage where you're confusing yourself from what your brain was doing and getting it to do something slightly different. So cognitive recalibration again. So you bring that feeling out in front of you by spinning your hand out in front of you, and then you bring the different backwards direction back inside to the feeling, and then you laugh about it because frankly it is a little bit silly. But it can really work. And I personally found it worked very well to disengage my thinking. That was my preferred cognitive recalibration technique. And that was really interesting because it was trying two different things and finding that they worked very differently for me personally. You might have a different reaction again. It's all about trying things and finding what works for you. The other thing to do is to, when you've got a new habit or a new idea of how something might work, try it for a week or so. Don't just sort of try it once, think it doesn't work and drop it. Give it a bit of a fair go. Bring in your little inner scientist, get a bit of data and see how it works over a slightly longer term and see how you feel about it. Maybe you'll want to experiment more. Maybe you'll want to experiment with different things. Try it at some different times of day. Find what works for you personally, because it's not important what works for me. It's not important what works for anyone else. It's important what works for you. So experiment like a mad scientist. Have fun and let me know how you get on. Stick it in the comments below or contact me at rathergoodcoaching.com. Take care. Cheerio.